everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm very pleased to have with me Professor Miguel. And Miguel, it's a pleasure having you part of the podcast. Welcome here.
Thank you for the invitation. It's also a pleasure to me to be here and to spare some of the information that I have about the sports and surfing particularly.
Absolutely. And it's going to be a very interesting, podcast episode. We're going to dive a little bit into your background, of course, Miguel, but also a little bit of the research that you did, within the big waves in Nazaré. Maybe I'm saying that wrong, but hopefully correct. You have to say the right one for me later. But for those of you that are tuning in and if you want to hear these interesting topics, once a week, every week on Monday, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get key insights from people like Miguel every week. So that's always good. But Miguel, why don't you take us a little bit back to sort of your academic and professional background? Just share a little bit about yourself first and foremost. I think it would be great for our audience to know.
I hope it's not boring, but I try to do my best.
Absolutely.
I started as a gymnast, and afterwards I understand that it was a very good opportunity to start coaching. So I start my career as a coach very early. Right. With the 16 years, so it nice. Was in the beginning of my career as a top level gymnast, right. Because I have some doubts if I could achieve the top level, right. And it was a second opportunity. So it was the idea. Let's see what I can do as a gymnast and start a career as a coach. Right. And afterwards, everything starts to go very fast. So I was a gymnast in the national team. So it was good, that part also. And I start my graduation in sports science in Faculty of Human Kinetics, a Faculdade de Motrocidade Humana. Yeah. And afterwards everything goes on. So I start also to when I finished the undergraduate course, I have an invitation to be a professor in the faculty, so it was very nice. Yeah. And I start teaching gymnastics, so it was my main topic, right. Since the beginning. And nowadays I also teach gymnastics for the first year of the graduation. So it seems to me it's the main topic overall. But right. Afterwards I do my master's degree and I start to do the research topic that I have, that is task analysis. So because it seems to me that everything comes from gymnastics, because in gymnastics we are always doing the analysis about the technique, about what we can improve, and we want always to improve. Yeah. So afterwards, I do my master degree thesis in an analysis about some techniques in trampolining and in the artistic gymnastics. Right. It was about a double somersault with twist. So it was my idea in the beginning. But afterwards, I start to change my ideas because I want to do my PhD. And I want to improve this idea of task analysis, and I start to pay some attention to surfing, because right. In 2000, so 20 years ago, we don't have almost any kind of research in surfing, and it was very strange to me, and it seems to me that it was a very good topic to start with this new approach for task analysis. So just to finish this intro, my main title for the PhD, it was Matrix of Analysis of for Sport Tasks. So it was the idea to develop something that I want to improve during the time, and that's why I'm doing lots of works around different sports and with this idea of analysis.
Right. No, but I mean, that's a really interesting background. I think it's also very cool, having that opportunity of starting as a coach as well, also very early. It's actually something I did as well, like within football, because it's just a great way also to get like some leadership experience. Because I mean, like
Mm.
kind of like similar to you as well. Like I didn't know if okay, maybe I probably won't be a football pro, at some time. So I was like, okay, but I still want to be involved in sports. So sort of like
Mm.
starting early, and I was 16 too. So it's kind of like a way of like getting that experience. But also I think it was really interesting as well how you were talking about, okay, you kind of like coming from gymnastics, but then saw kind of like that opportunity and potential in surfing, which again, like didn't have that amount of research, and you can sort of like see those correlations in with it. So I think that's really interesting. And I guess like you have to give us a little bit taste of like where did your passion for surfing and sort of like these major waves come to life.
And I can say to you that everything starts very early because, like I told you, I was a gymnast.
Yeah.
In my sport career, everything was around gymnastics.
Right.
But I have a family house that usually we use in summertime.
Right.
So since I was very young, I have the opportunity. It is in Costa da Caparica, so it is very close to the ocean, and in 5 minutes we have the opportunity to catch some waves. So
Very lucky.
since 6 years old, I start
Yeah.
to catch waves, and I was in it was in 1976, so it was a long time ago, and
Right.
it's almost the time that we have for the evolution of surfing in Portugal. So I was in the same time having the opportunity to start with different apparatus. So in the beginning, it was without a surfboard because we don't have surfboards in Portugal.
Yeah.
It was very difficult. Only in the 80s they start to appear very tourists from Australia and other countries, United States, for example.
Right.
They bring the boards. And in the end, they left the boards in Portugal. That's why we start to have boards in Portugal. And so I was more or less in a parallel way with this history of surfing in Portugal.
That's
So
really cool.
everything starts very early. But I was a gymnast, so I use surfing as a second sport and the sport to do in a free way. And that's the very good spirit that you can have with this contact with the nature. So it's a very good, pleasant way of doing sports,
Right.
and to keep fit also.
Yeah.
And that's why I have surfing since I remember.
Oh, that I mean, like it makes total sense though. Plus, it brings up sort of like the whole, I guess, like being a gymnastic where you're in many cases just indoor, right? And then having that surfing opportunity outdoor, like feeling the nature. And I mean, like as a Norwegian, I really appreciate, the value of nature. So it is always good to hear that's also the case in Portugal. And like you said, like having that close opportunity to the ocean. And you touched a little bit upon it in like since 2000 you started like kind of like getting involved into the growth of surfing and sports science through the research at FMH and through this initiative, like what kind of research and career opportunities sort of like came through it.
Yeah, it seems that it's nice to tell you a story that is the it seems to me that that is the beginning of everything. In 95, I was in the beginning of my career as a professor,
Yeah.
and I have the opportunity to have one of the best bodyboarders in the world. It was Dora Gomes, and she was in the first year of the undergraduate course. And I start to tell her how I know what you can do around bodyboarding, but with using techniques of gymnastics, because I have the both knowledges.
Yeah.
And she was astonished, and she doesn't understand why can I, as a gymnastic professor, tell her what she could do to improve her technique and to improve the approach for some waves. But it was a good conversation. But in the end, she left the course and everything stops around that. But 2 years or 1 year after, I have another student, that it's David Raimundo, and he was a top level surfer in Portugal. Nice. And I start to play with him around this. and I use one sentence that it was very strange to him, that I told him, surfing is like gymnastics because you are doing always the same in the wave. And he doesn't agree at all, because for most of the people, when you are in the ocean, it seems that everything is different. All the waves are different. All the opportunities are different. So when I understand that I can't prove to him this idea that I have, I understand that I need to study this, because I need to prove what I'm saying, because I am almost for sure that I'm telling the truth, and this is the approach that we need to improve. So this is the beginning of a history, but afterwards nothing happens. And in 2000, like you told, 1 year later, David is finishing his undergraduate course, and he told me, can you coach me? Because I would like to have a coach, and it seems we don't have coaches in Portugal, so it is possible to do that. And I said, he wants the beginning is not as a coach. He wants a personal trainer, more to have an approach more to the fitness things, because he doesn't believe that I could be a real coach in the sentence that we can say, or what we can feel that the coach needs to understand about the sport and to do around the sport. But I told him, no, I want to be your coach, so I need to control everything. If you agree, we can go through this project. You need to invite more, 3 or 4 guys, because only with you it's much more difficult. And he said, okay, that's what I want to tell you, because I have 3 friends of mine that they really want to participate. So we start with the 4 surfers. They have more or less 20 years of age. They are in the top 16 of Portugal. So everything was new, because it's a beginning of everything, but they are not in the beginning of the career. So I start almost, I started as in the top league of the surfing in Portugal. So that's the beginning of everything. So afterwards I told them, now I'm going to do some tests with you, or everything that I'm going to do, it's new. So everything, it's a test. So if you want to be like the mouse in the lab, we can go on. And they said, okay, let's do it. So I start the idea to do the research. And the research was doing in an ongoing process. So I was doing the training sessions in the beach, doing the training sessions in the gymnastics hall, because I start to mix everything since the beginning. And that's what happened. So in the end, we have 4 years after, we have some good results. So we have 2 of them were in the national team with European winners in the European competition as members of national team from Portugal. We have some of them winning national championships and so on. So it was good for some guys that start late. But afterwards, 2 of them, it was David and Nun, they decided that they are old to go on. But we have been doing 3 or 4 more years with them. But they really want to improve this idea and to be coaches and start with the kids, to start everything from the beginning. And I can tell you that it was a very lucky situation, because in the end, after 2 or 3 years, we start to have all the national championships are with the first place and second place was for the kids that were in the team. And nowadays we have at least 2 of them are in the national team, and now they are in the World Championship in El Salvador. So it seems that everything goes. And David Raimund, it's the national coach. So everything goes not as we expect. So for me, it's a very nice history, and it seems that now we need to search for new things, because everything was done until now, and I really don't know what should be the next step.
Well, I mean, like that's part of innovation, right? And kind of like continues the research. But I gotta kind of like ask though, if they now, the surfers that you were coaching, if they now agree on the term, that the sentence that you had, where the surfing is the same kind of motion as the gymnastics. Like, I
Yeah,
would assume now they kind of like feel that you have some valid
and
points on this.
they agree, and they improve the idea, of course. That's why it seems to me that nowadays David is one of the best coaches in the world, because he improves this idea.
Right.
And now they understand that we need to have to in mind what we can do with the trajectory in the wave, and what are the decisions that we need to do. So the decision making process is one of the most important parts in sports.
Yep.
And in this kind of environment that it's changing all the time, it's one of the topics. So to have a good decision making, we need to understand what are the opportunities that we have. So the idea is around this subject. So we need to teach them which are the opportunities, and we need to teach them how to decide. And in the end, the decisions are almost the same. They are changing the order that they appear, but it's almost the same.
Yeah.
And in my study, I applied 110 techniques with videos to study with, also with coaches and judges, to have some information with them.
Yep.
But in the end, we can have more techniques. So I can say that because we ride the wave in a front side position and also in the back side position, in the end, it's the bottom turn, for example, it's the same name, but if you do it in the front side position to the wave, it's a different technique if you do it in the back side position. So in the end, we need to multiply almost everything by 2, because we have 2 positions to ride the wave. But in the end, we try to say, no, it's not so complex. We can see it as a simple situation, because it's easier to understand and easier to learn. And they understand now that we have some types of waves, and they don't change every time. At least the 20 minutes of the heat, we can have the same conditions. So
that makes a lot of sense. And I think also like that understanding that you brought to the surface that you were coaching, that sort of like open up their, I don't know, coaching spirit too, and their coaching element of like, okay, now this is interesting, right? I can kind of like, of course, like I'm testing and doing this, but I also know like what is happening, and hence you kind of like, as I said, was creating this circle where now they are kind of like retiring, I guess, from professional surfing. At least they can now bring that, to the youth, and you can kind of like have that full circle of development, which is awesome for the sport and for the science as well, for continuing getting that research. But if we go a little bit further ahead to sort of like 2011, and you and obviously, FMH started like sort of like a research project on the big surfing waves of Nazare. First of all, you got to explain like what kind of major waves is this, and and I guess like where is Nazare, and take us through kind of like the project itself and some of the results that you saw.
So, like I told you before, my major topic for research is task analysis. So most of the time I'm doing task analysis with all kind of sports. So if I'm seeing the champions competition of football or volleyball, so I'm always doing that. So it's sometimes it's crazy craziness in my mind. So can I just enjoy? It's not easy to only just enjoy seeing sports. So that's what happened when I saw the first time the Garrett McNamara wave, and it was something that was new, and I start to understand that, as we have in surfing, most of the times we have a lack of information. So I try to research what should we know about this wave, to understand what happened with this surfer, and to understand what we should do to improve and to go further. Of course, this is a record, so they really want to do only records, and it was the beginning. So, but just for fun. I
Right.
used
Sure.
the softwares that we usually have to as a study that I have in trampolining, for example, to understand what is the height that the gymnast was doing in each jump.
Mm,
We use that kind of software, and it's easy to understand when we have a closed environment and we have the trampoline or everything that in all the basketball. You have information that you know the height that you have, the width that you have. So you have informations that are closed, and then you use the software, and it's easy to understand what happened with the players and what is going on in the field.
sure.
And I try to understand, can we use this kind of software in this kind of environment?
Yeah.
And I just do it in the beginning, but I know that we have something is wrong with our approach, but it was the beginning. So
Right.
only afterwards I start to try to understand what we need to have more, and that's what it's going on right now in the past years.
Yeah.
Some of the surfers start to understand that they have a tool here to help them to reach this kind of record, because in the end they have some money if
Right.
they appear in the world record book,
Yeah.
and they are prize money. So they start to understand, if I can do something to convince them to give me the prize, they understand they have some help here.
Right.
And it was what happened with Maya Gabeira. She wanted my help, and I tried to have the measures, and in the end she had the record. And it also happened with Nuno Figueiredo. It's a Portuguese kite surfer that also have the record in kite surfing.
Right.
And he also used my appreciation about what happened to convince the international institutions that give the prizes. So that's
Right.
what's happened. But nowadays we start to understand, now it's dangerous to do like this, because we know we have some errors in this analysis.
Right.
So from now on we start to study some, and it's with a bigger team. So I have two other researchers that are helping from now on.
Okay.
And we are going to develop some other approaches to see what we need to improve here.
Right.
And one of the topics is the slope of the wave. So when we have the information, we are most of the time looking forward to the wave, but the best way to have the measures should be in a side vision. But
Right.
it's almost impossible to have that kind of images in the water.
Yeah.
So we are now studying the slope of the wave to understand what kind of data we can collect from there, and then to understand what is the real distance that they are covering when they are riding the wave.
Right.
Because they aren't riding the wave in a vertical trajectory, they are riding the wave in a slope wave. So now we're trying to measure connecting these kind of approaches. So we are improving, but it's only the beginning of something that could be stronger from now on.
Well, I think it's really interesting though, and as you say, it's sort of like been like this continuous research, since day one of like, first of all, sort of like mapping out the ground rules, I guess, in a sense of like, okay, how do you first of all measure this, and how can you sort of like impact that to make results, and now you sort of like elevating that by looking at the wave as a whole, like how far is the surfer traveling, right? Which is again also depending on the height of the wave, right? Of like how big is it, and so forth, and I guess like if you want to like dive a little bit more into like what are some of the kind of like main objectives, I guess, that you're looking for, sort of like with this continuous research, what are some of the things that you want to, or like is there anything like, I guess, like goals or research goals that you've been setting yourself for this continuous research to see, okay, what kind of result do we want to see, or like what are we kind of like estimating or picturing at this point, or is that too early to say?
About the Nazare wave, the idea is For us, it's also a real pleasure. Just let me to go a little bit back.
Sure.
Just to go back to say that it was amazing for us to have the opportunity to try to solve the problems that we have in the field. So
right.
For me, one of the issues in sports science is that the scientists are working with some ideas they have, and sometimes they don't help. They aren't a real help for the sport coaches and a real help for someone that is working on the field.
Right.
And for me, this is a very good opportunity to have that. Also with the training situations that David, it's also asking from some help when they have problems in the training. And that's the moment that we have right now, and that's for me, that's why it's very a pleasant situation. But talking about the Nazare wave, our idea is to reach at least in the next steps to a measure that we can give with less error and try to reach a situation that it's the most important here, that if you want to measure the Nazare wave, you need to measure it always with the same approach. If you change the methods, of course, you are going to have different results.
Of course.
So our first idea, and we are in contact with the mayor of Nazaré, and they also agree with this. The idea is, at least in Nazaré, to use always the same method. And we really want to be in that part of the situation. So we really want to be the faculty that are going to help to have that measure. But the idea is to have the less error as possible.
Yep.
But of course, we need to improve, and we can also improve, for example, and our idea is to connect data from the board. So we know we can have some apparatus that we can introduce in the board.
Yep.
We have this contact also with other researchers, and it's possible to collect some data from the speed of the board, from the height that the board is measuring itself in the wave. So in the end, we can also always improve with other kind of collecting data. So that's the idea right now. So the first step is to be the faculty that is doing the measure, and it's for all surfers. It's not only for the contest. And afterwards to improve the method. So that's the idea to Nazare.
It makes a lot of sense, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see sort of like the new data and sort of like comparing that to the old data too, and sort of like see, okay, the errors that you're limiting, and sort of like the results of the waves, and like the extra measurements as well, as you were talking about, with like including like the surfers and the boards, you know, with the technology coming up today. And there's a lot of key measurements that you can continue tracking, you know, over time, and for each, you know, wave that they're surfing. So I think it's going to be really fascinating to see, and I hope you will share the results with me when you have it one day in the future, because I think
it seems really, with Nazare, it seems that it's easy to share, because the television broadcasting is always on top with that, and awesome. It's easy to appear in the information. So
well, I'll be waiting for that link to the clip or something in the near future. So to sort of like kind of like wrapping up a little bit here, and I guess like, if you wanted to like provide like some tips, I guess, for any student or sport professional out there, sort of like looking to dive maybe like a little bit more into the surfing industry, and also like maybe like from a sports science angle, like what kind of tips do you have for them?
Of course, that I need to tell you what is the approach that I've been doing from these 20 years working with the students and also with the coaches. So I start to tell them since the beginning that they need to study first all these kind of factors that they have around this sport. And of course, then they need to go to the field and to improve doing what they need to do in a coaching process. But the main message is something that we know from other researchers, that after an undergraduate course, lots of students start to be as they don't have the course. So it seems they go back since the beginning, because they come from some sport, they have the course and they finish with the title. They know that they can go to the field, and afterwards they start to do everything, like I told you, if they don't have the course. And
Right.
I give them that message. So you are losing time if you come to the university and you just want to give the title, to have the title. So
Right.
try yourself to search for new things, to search for what you need to understand, what you want to understand better in your own sport.
Right.
And of course, in my teaching process, in all kinds of sports, we are always talking about that. And
Right.
other message, I always teach them that gymnastics is the beginning of everything.
Yeah.
So I have the opportunity to be with the students, and I told them, try to understand this, and then you understand much more about what happened with the sport.
Right.
And afterwards, when they start to reaching the end, I try to convince them to go to the master. And when they finish the master, I try to convince them, some of them, to go to the PhD. But the idea that I try to tell them is that they should go always step by step.
Right.
So, of course, David Raimund, it's someone that they can use in surfing as a good image and an idea they can go, they can follow.
Yeah.
But it's a process with 16 years, so they should have the resilience, they should have the patience, they should work. So and sometimes they feel that we have this kind of opportunity. So some of the students that they finish the graduation, the master, they have some projects they start working with. We have some Erasmus students that they finish and they work with the national team in Spain. So it seems with this that everything is easy. So it seems they just need to come to Portugal. They do part of our specialization in surfing, and then they have a good job. And I always try to tell them it's not true. So you need to have the knowledge, but afterwards, with that knowledge, you need to improve yourself. And the final word is that, like I told you, it's very important for the researcher to have the problems from the field. So if they want to be researchers, if they want to do the master, and if they want to do the PhD, they should bring the problems from the field. They shouldn't come to the university and say, no, it's very nice to do this kind of project because we have some gurus around this theory. And for me, it's not the approach. The idea is that you should work, then you should search for some problems that you feel that you have in your practicing, and afterwards, let's try to solve them. And for me, that's the most important. Try to have some methods that you can have from different kind of techniques and different kind of approaches, and then you decide which is the technique that you want to use. So if you want neurophysiological approach, then we have different kind of professors to help them and different kind of technologies to help them. But that's the idea.
No, but I think it makes total sense, and I think it's a perfect way to wrap up this podcast, Miguel. With that, of course, like, it was some really great advice, some really great insights on your research, on your background, and I mean, like, you've been part of this industry and the research field of surfing and gymnastics and all the big waves for a long time. So, Miguel, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing your story. And for those of you that were sitting here all the way at the end to the end, make sure to like the video. We'll provide like some link to the research as well, so you can take a look, if that's interesting for you, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, Miguel, thank you once again, and it was a pleasure having you part of this.
Oh, it was a real pleasure to me, and I appreciate also to have this chat with you, and thank you also.
Absolutely, Miguel. I learned a lot. So it's I mean, like I'm not all the way into like this surfing and gymnastics. So I mean, like for me, I'm just soaking in a lot of this knowledge too, and I'm gonna look this up a little bit too, a little bit deeper, because it's fascinating, and it's always interesting when you're combining, you know, the elements of nature and sports and science. So and I really enjoy what you were saying in terms of like just looking and working on problems that the sector and the industry has. I think that's a key factor that has to be in the pinpoint of sports science and research that is being done. So I really appreciate that, Miguel. So thank you once again. And with every video we do, we always finish with "Vi snakkes," which means see you later in Norwegian. So now you know some Norwegian as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you.